Dun 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 dun. Stop. Dun dun dun. Shut up, computer. Jesus Christ. Run here really quick. I am playing the Hayseed. I don't care if that doesn't match any of the games that you know of, because this game's gonna be awesome. Just chatting? I'm very quiet. Oh boy. Bum 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 bum. Mr. Snoot Newt. Wow 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 wow. No. Voice changer. Properties. Stop, damn it. Dun dun dun. Hmm. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, goodness gracious. And then we just expand this. Boom, boom. No more on the fun. Let us enjoy this. And this. La 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 la. That. Okay. Fine. But now you can hear the Fupa. There. Wait a minute. Okay, fine. Anyway. Hello there. So, tonight I'm going to be playing a game called The Hayseed Knight, Chapters 1 and 2. I don't know how far I'm going to get. I follow the person who made this on Twitter, and they like having people play and stream and stuff. So, yeah. Are you still there? Are you still there? Can you hear me? This is ground I can't sing. You know what? Screw it. This is ground control to Major Tom. Alright, so Hayseed Knight version 1.4. This is a game that this person has been working on for a very long time. Hopefully chapter 3 will be out soon so that I can play that. If you're watching this later, and I agree with you, it is Juan, not Juan. Hey Juan. No, it's Juan. Hello. Don't get ahead of myself. What do you mean don't get ahead of myself? Big ol' question mark. In English. Ooh. Follow THK on Twitter. Support THK on Patreon. They said that it was gonna be out soon. Screw you, leave me alone. Alright, so options. English. Full screen. No! Damn it. Alright, fine. Yes? Chapter 3, damn it. This version includes up to Chapter 2 and a major aesthetic update regarding character designs. Anything displayed is subject to change in later versions. As always, keep up with development on my Twitter account. That would be Sandra MJ Dev. So, go follow. Oh, okay. This is hard. Harder than I would have thought. Coming back, I mean. I've been walking for who knows how long. But here I am. So let's see how heirlooms. Heirlooms? Heirlooms? I think heirlooms sounds nice. I will be corrected. So let's see how heirlooms changed in my absence. Yeah, they're... Skip. Auto, save, quick save. Anyway. Hrub. Hirub. 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 So good to see you. The Royal Pathway. fancy as ever. People, tiny people, gods, I still hate you all. I swear that if someone so much as looks at me twice, I'm leaving and not coming back. For real. Seriously. No? No looking at me? Really? How can you ignore this big hat? Do you even know who I am, you witless bunch of fop-doodles? Fine. Whatever. I guess it's better, or that it's been longer than I thought. Leave the whole fame and glory thing to the people who actually deserve to be mentioned. Like me. After all, I'm basically doing charity work here. There's no reason for me to come back. I should have just stayed out of Akazor. Forever. Akathor. Forever. I should have learned not to care about the things they say about that dumbass at this point. But the things they've been saying about him are just crazy. Oh, but the Knight of the Upper Field, that's how they call him now. And they sing dumb songs about all the awesome things he never did. Battling monsters, serving whatever king or queen rules at the time, casting spells, loving does, until morning comes, making foes vanish with a single scream. And you know what? It's getting really hard to remember what's a true and what's a lie. And it's scary. That's the single scariest thing that's ever happened to me. I like him too much to ignore this anymore. So I'm going home. I'm going to tell everyone what kind of idiot their dear king is. Figuratively. In a book. Without my name. I don't especially want to be lynched. Oh wait. Right. This was a letter. Can you read yet? If so, tell your mother I hate her. If not, I guess she'll burn this letter for your convenience. Wish me luck all the same. I have no idea of how to start this. Chapter 1. The Fickle Queen. What better way to start a story than when things are about to go south?
Adder.
Oh.
Hey, lad. Do we have to go through this every single fuck?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Here we go.
A beast. I saw a beast.
Oh gosh.
Way to call me an eyesore.
Look at those hands though.
I'm telling you, I saw a beast.
Right. Look, I'm not drunk enough for this, so good.
This ain't no time to sleep. The beast may be gone, but the Macadar is still out there.
Because his hands are very big. I have the biggest hands.
The forest's out there and it's come to find me.
Can you stop screaming like an idiot and use your brain for a second?
I knew they'd get to the city one day. We gotta tail everyone.
There are no damn trees around, you dimwit!
Long hush followed right after. Or that's what we'll go with since the words their dear neighbors used were too colorful to reproduce.
Oh, then what did you holler for, Mr. Bard? The sun ain't up yet. If you don't quit your whining, we're gonna get a beating.
Says you, the buck who hath been delighting mine ears with his pitiful wailing.
Say what?
All night long. Sorry.
You've been talking in your sleep again.
Well, slap my head and call me silly. I'm so sorry, Mr. Bard. I forgot we were an heirloom for a moment there.
Heirloom.
But no more. I'm gonna make sure to keep my dreams dead silent from now on.
That's what you said last time. Can't a deer have a hangover in peace for once?
You know that I'd move away if I could, but...
Don't sweat it, kid. Once you're faring better, you'll take us both out of our misery.
Wait. Fair? Fair? Oh, 3.
Don't.
Oh my god.
The fair!
I swear to bite that kid, if you keep screaming, I'm going to kill you.
Not if they get to me first!
I'm so glad it. Oh. And so Hatter's heavy hooves stomped the ground with the force of a stampede as he sprinted away, making Geoff regret every decision that led to him suffering this torment.
Glad we sorted that out.
Wide awake now and running as fast as his clumsy hooves would let him, Hatter set off to the bazaar. A whole year had come and gone since he'd first set foot on the streets of Slander District, the most infamous slums of the capital. A place so heinous that walking there alone at night was considered a suicide attempt. A place where you were in your right to keep house if you could outlast its previous owner. Where he'd once felt like a poor fawn fearing for his life, now he felt like a poor deer fearing for his life. But at least he actually knew his way around after such a long time avoiding brigands. He had no time to spare worrying about trivial matters such as being robbed or stabbed, for he knew fully well that he was to meet his destiny.
The patron's gonna skin me alive!
A destiny which most likely didn't really include being flayed by his dearest employer. Though we can't rule out the possibility of his direct superior whacking him in the head for oversleeping on such an important date.
What if she hates me now?
Oh.
And the patron won't have no problem kicking me out. He'll kick me out and keep my skin as a payment. Nah, that's dumb. But he'll kill me anyway. Oh, crap.
So mercy was he and those fatalistic thoughts invading his head that his brain, which was by all accounts mostly made up of sawdust, didn't pay any mind to the path his hooves were following. And so, as is to be expected from someone not heeding the wise advice, look where you're going, he soon met the first obstacle on his way to the plaza. A wall.
Oh dear.
In any other place, that soft chuckle would have meant that Adder wouldn't have the benefit of living with his failures alone in the slums, if it could mean that he wouldn't have the benefit of living at all.
That was almost impressive.
Zep?
I truly thought that you were going to run straight through that wall for a moment.
I don't think so. Not Zep. The voice got closer by the second, followed by a strangely harmonic tinkling at its up. A melody that danced in his ears and paralyzed his mind, rendering him frozen in the spot at the thought of an incoming murderous lady. Adder shut his one remaining eye and held his breath deeply, knowing that it would be the last. Sorry. Not dead yet. Still not dead. How come he was still alive? That's just rude. Between his blurry sight and the obfuscating darkness, Adder could barely tell apart the silhouette standing right in front of him. He should have run and screamed and begged for his life, but instead, he hesitated long enough for a few stray sunrays to wander among the run-down houses, finally casting light upon his foe.
Whoa!
For your information, everyone already thinks that Rose are thick-skulled. We don't need another martyr for the cause.
Damn! Adder's absolute lack of reaction made her mocking smile falter. To be fair, he had indeed left a sizable hole in the wall he'd just crashed against, but that was hardly the case for his sudden drop in mental speed.
Are you okay?
Hottie. Adder nodded, though he hadn't really heard the question. Sensing this, the mysterious lass extended a soft hand towards him in an amiable gesture.
What are those?
Them hands. Why is that funny? I just said, them hands. Them me presidential hands.
I know they're short. Please don't stare.
His fingers?
What kind of nonsense is that? I'd never seen hands like those before.
Innuendos. Long.
My hands? You like my hands?
Were you born with them? How much weight can you lift? Can you use tools at all? Or wear a shirt? What's wrong with your neck? Is that a hood or a scarf? I love the pattern, by the way.
Slow down there, lady. Please what? They're me hands.
So?
I'm sorry, ma'am. What was the question?
Some personal questions? I forgot what I was laughing at. The innuendos bit.
You? What are you supposed to
What?
be?
Oh.
Oh! Well, I'm just your run-of-the-mill prairie buck, man. Just, you know, my mom gave me shovels for hands and a gourd for a neck. They're better for work in the fields.
Oh, come on. I want the actual story.
You want the boring bits? Okay. See, I used to be all big and strong. But then I come to the city and what do you know? Food ain't so easy to come by. I was so hungry that I'd even eat the rocks in the street. And I go to bed hungry one night, and another, and I keep on starving till I end up 2 meals short of turning into a walking pile of bones. Except for my hands. They just won't get. And they're for real heavy, let me tell you. So, that's the gist of it. Want to hear about my neck, too? Or my name, at least?
The girl's eyes narrowed as she stared at Adder. He fixed his gaze on his hands, considering the strange path the conversation had taken.
So, what you are saying is that you used to be plump?
Oh, she said he was fat.
Plump? Like fruit? Well, I used to eat a bunch of fruit before I came down here last year, yeah.
Man, dumb as a post. Howdy.
Last year? Wait, how many eyes did you have then?
How many? 5, I think, but I lost the other 4. Just the one, man.
Oh,
I
love
knew
it.
it. You've changed a lot, but it's you. You're that loudmouthed one-eyed chub.
Oh.
Say what?
It's me. Don't tell me you've forgotten me.
Oh. Geoff had warned Adam multiple times about the dangers of the "it's me" scams, but he was pretty tempted to fall into this one.
Ma'am! I don't know what you're selling, but I ain't gonna buy it.
Come on. Don't you remember that night on the bridge under Hirab's statue? With the guards laughing at you?
Oh. Stupid guards. That's not nice.
You didn't hit your head that hard, did you?
Look at her face, like a look of slight worry and slight, "Are you that dumb?" A lot of "Are you that dumb?" with a little bit of worry.
I bet those guards had one haystack of a night laughing at some poor buck. I'm pretty darn sure that wasn't me. I'd remember you. Trust me.
It was a pretty long time ago, but
It is called the Hayseed Night. And so far, I love it. I have laughed hysterically, including something that I did to myself. But yeah, Hayseed Night. This has been one person doing pretty much the entire freaking game on their own. This is in like alpha right now. They're still working on it, and but they're an artist. I follow them on Twitter, and they drew all this by hand. Every little move that they make is just different frames. See, it goes from open to close, not a movement. It's just up and close, up and close. Anyway, so it's like, anyway, your mod privs got taken away. Uh-oh. Gotta fix that. But, I've been, let's put that down here. Talking to the person that made the game, and they like it when people do what I'm doing now, streaming it and putting it out there and stuff. Let me just fix this really quick. Wait a second. Yeah, mods. That's not what I was looking for. There's mods that I can install for games. Oh, that's not what I'm looking for either. Dang it. I'm going to have to do this another time, unfortunately. I'm sorry. The means. It's not that funny, but the means. Anyway, so yeah, been following this person on Twitter, and just like out of the blue, I think somebody reposted or retweeted something that they had posted, and I was just like, oh, this is cool. And I'm just they were like, yeah, I'm making a game. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. And this is the game. And yeah, so I'm playing it. They live in Spain, so unfortunately they can't watch. I have an account with LOL, but I have not started playing yet. I meant to for a while.
Wait, I know.
She bit her lip. Oh, she bit her lip just long enough to make Adder lose his need to understand the situation anymore.
Come closer.
Oh. Who, me? Almost asked the deer. Yet there was no one else hiding in the mists of dawn.
I said come closer.
Oh! Better do it.
All right then, here I come.
That's it? Come on, don't make me walk over there. Boop.
Oh, she booped him.
That's close enough.
She slipped right under Adder's arm, uninvited, but not unwelcomed.
Now, if you could get on your knees, you know what? Maybe you should see a doctor after all.
He's vibrating! Oh! You should feel dirty. Jeez!
Joseph! There you are!
Oh, give me a break.
In less than a blink, her smile was back on her face, and she turned to face the voice in the distance. It was some other doe in similarly flashy clothing, hurriedly stomping her way towards Joseph, apparently.
You called?
We've been looking everywhere for you!
Some wench. Like it.
And so you found me. Congratulations. Now, if you don't mind...
Miss Rochelle's had us searching for hours! She wants you back immediately!
Well, I'm kind of busy, so... Would you be so kind to go tell her to find someone else to bother? While I
Not
catch up
anymore,
with my
no.
friend here?
The fair's about to start! Head back already or you'll get us all in trouble!
The red-haired girl stood completely still. She held her breath for an instant.
I'm sorry. Was that an order?
Ooh.
What? Miss Rochelle said...
Say, do you know what happened to the last wench who had the gall to order me around?
Uh-oh. Joseph's smile was still plastered on her face, but her eyes had narrowed down to a squint, sharpening her long eyelashes even further.
I don't...
Care to find out?
Oh, sorry. If you'll get this, you get this. Ooh. Oh, shut up, cats. I don't give a shit. The doe, looking for her, stammered. Color drained from her mane. After a few tense seconds, a pleased smile spread across Joseph's face.
Come now, honey. Don't make that face. I'm just joking here. I've got too much going on as it is to begin picking fights with my sisters. Don't you think?
Right.
Then that's settled. Let's go.
Joseph whipped her braid as she turned around sharply. making the choir of bells that hung from her hips announce her leave. Ada had barely just a second to register what had happened. He could swear something had moved in a corner, but he couldn't care less. The finest lass he'd laid eyes upon in his whole life was about to disappear, and she seemed to have forgotten all about him. Facing the prospect of never seeing her again, he tried at the very least to catch up to introduce himself formally.
Wait,
Yes?
But, as Ada was about to speak, he had the same feeling of missing something. And so, as his gaze drifted, following her back once more, he noticed something else moving behind her derriere. Something long, with a whip, like a whip, ending in a red tuft of fur. Something that most definitely didn't look like a servine tail. Confused, his eyes quickly traveled from the zone where her back lost its name to the top of her head. Praying, wishing, desperately hoping that he wouldn't find what he found sprouting from the top of her red head. Horns, not antlers. Horns. Coiled, black, Barhan horns. Longer than his own rack. Antlers. Ada had to hold back a yelp. He'd been so distracted by the rest of her features that... No! No way! I wasn't looking at her! Ada yelled internally. Beads of sweat began falling from his temples as his face became even more flustered. There's no way I... But as if meaning to aggravate his inner turmoil, Jasif smiled one last time with the mischievous glint in her eyes.
Don't worry. I'll see you around. Handsome.
Ada was so many things. He was goofy. Oh, and so many. He was loud. He had a smile that could light up a whole town. He was gigantic, and yet, if there was a thing he'd never call himself, it was, no doubt, handsome. After all, a buck's worth may as well be as large as his horns were. Ah, and his were, well, tiny. I have to change the narrator voice. I am scratching the shit out of my throat. His were, well, tiny. Almost childlike. So, that offhanded compliment, that mere insinuation that someone found him actually good looking made his heart flutter. And by flutter, I mean it may as well have burst out of his chest right then. So, for just 1 second, he forgot that the lady in front of him was horned. For a moment, he forgot all the things he'd heard about gazelles. His face turned red, his jaw came loose, but had he been able to articulate, he'd have found he'd completely forgotten the ability to talk. He still knew how to do one thing, though. I want a different option, please. More options. More, take notes, please. More options. No. Oh, man. Screams of endless suffering. Bro, please. Oh, please, more. This time, his shame was stronger than the wall. That's all he knows how to do. It's his only move. He needs to learn more. Somebody get a TN. Oh, the sun was barely up in the sky by the time Adam managed to remember that he was supposed to go to the bazaar.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to arrive so late. Please don't kill me.
Fuck you, Serby. Where's the rum? Where's the rum gone? But lo and behold, there was no one around.
Ha! What do you know? First again. I'm gonna have to ask for a raise at this rate. Oh, hold up. Now ain't the time for that. Andy could get here at any... Boss! Ha! Gotcha. You're gonna end up giving someone a heart attack if you don't quit sneaking up on people like that, you know.
Yes!
Right. Don't you think for a second I forgot I was supposed to prepare the stall. No, ma'am. But, you know, days are getting longer, and it's harder to sleep at night, and the streets are real crowded, and...
Pineapple upside down cake with cookies and cream ice cream? What did you do? Letting me know, because this sounds so freaking yummy right now. Ina's silent glare told him that she didn't believe a single word, but she didn't care enough to pry either.
Hey now! Quit giving me that look, missy. You got here late, too.
The look of the double blink. I love it. Sorry. She pointed at her hair. Drops of silvery green water were dancing on her tips, painting the ground beneath them.
And how is it my fault that you were busy dyeing your hair?
Remove that term. What term? Wait, what? Oh. What? Oh. Leaving him with that perfectly valid question unanswered, she walked back to pick up a big bag she had left a few steps away. She lifted it up with a single hand and then headed towards the stall, closely followed by Ada. It was about time that they began working. A sudden thought popped up in Ada's mind as he helped her set up their carpet.
So, how come the patron ain't here? It's just gonna be the two of us today?
Got it? Got it. Okay. Okay. Ina simply shrugged.
You won't tell your pa I got here late, right, boss?
She punched his arm with such strength that she almost made him fall sideways. Your birthday gonna be lit. What are you, like, 12?
Ow! What did I... Oh, tail. Sorry, boss.
This little reminder that was a sensitive issue effectively killed the conversation. People from all over Erlum began congregating. I thought I was about to say regurgitating. What the heck? Congregating in the bazaar, turning... I gotta cut that out completely. Turning the walled plaza into a sea of spice, trinkets, and deer. The currents of that sea were still difficult to understand for Adder, who often found himself pushed to the ground in the busiest hours. Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember. That sounds like it's going to be cool. Today would be especially lively. Boom. And oh. I know. Son of the upper field. Oh, Adder. Old enough to drink in this tavern, Miss Sparky. No one actually counted. Guess. Yeah, probably. Alright, it was the beginning of the Monsoon season, and so the festive Kane had to make sure to bid a proper farewell to the rain clouds, so they'd be back again by the end of it. He's gonna do a 24-hour stream. Right? I think that's what you said. A pleasant change from Adder's usual day-to-day working in Ina's forge under the continuous risk of suffering a heat stroke or third-degree burns. Or that's what he thought at first.
Welcome, welcome. We got the best prices in town. Come on and see what goods we offer.
There was no reaction whatsoever to his incessant yelling. Other than Ina snickering at him for trying so hard. That is.
Sure must be fun watching me break my back so your dad won't yell at us.
With a long sigh, Ina sat up and cast a tired glance over the carpet. She reached out and grabbed a small, shiny dagger. After checking its sharpness against her gloves, she began stabbing the air as possible customers approached the stall, attempting to showcase its intended use. Adder quickly put his hands over her shoulders, discreetly bringing her arms down.
You know what? Nah, take that back. No deer in the world that works harder than ain't of the test. There just ain't. A hard worker like you deserves a good rest every once in a while, so just let me take care of this, boss.
He did his best to attempt his best attempt at a natural smile. Ina, who couldn't care less about any of this, simply shrugged and sat back, still wielding the knife. She is mute. Mute. The term was changed to mute a long time ago because dumb is just rude. She let her hand fall on one of the stones that paved the bazaar and effortlessly tore it from the ground, deciding that it'd serve better as a sharpening tool. Did I say mute or a mute? Because a mute is derogatory, but saying that she is mute is not. I believe.
You do.
You do you. Alright. The hours passed by slowly and painfully, for they were completely ignored by any passerby. Well, actually, avoided rather than ignored. It was no surprise. The merchant, Ada's patron, and his mute daughter were two of the most despised people in the city. In spite of the incredible variety of the antiquities and smithery that the merchant had for sale, no one ever bought a single thing. And there were plenty of reasons for that. Even Adder had some serious doubts about working for an old Barhan man whose fur was redder than blood, and an albino smith that insisted on dyeing her hair green. The fact that they worked independently from Heirloom's Traders Guild probably had something to do with it too. In any case, it was well after noon, and they hadn't done anything but sit around the whole day. Adder pressed his lips together and began drumming his fingers against the floor. He looked askance at Aina, hoping his subtle call for attention had stirred her curiosity. But there was no answer. He'd have to be the one to actually break the silence as usual.
So, hey, Aina. I bet you're still wondering just what in the world can make a hard-working buck like this one get here so late this morning.
Aina stopped hitting the rock with the blade. She barely moved her eyes towards Adder.
Well, buckle up, because there's a whole story there. This got to stay between you and I. But, this morning, I ran through a wall. Good thing I have a thick skull, right?
Adder's attempt at starting some sort of one-way conversation fell short. Yet another awkward silence ensued. He feared in those long seconds of quietness that his words hadn't been heard, or worse yet, that they were, but he was to be ignored for eternity. No, that couldn't be. He'd surely worried her too much. Of course she'd be concerned. What kind of idiot runs straight into a wall and then brags about it? I shouldn't have told her that, he lamented, thinking of ways to excuse himself for such a dumb thing.
Ow! What's that for?
Aww. Yes, he knows she can't speak. Groan.
What? You get mad when I worry about you, and you get mad when you worry about me? That ain't fair, ma'am. I'm gonna get real mad at you next time you punch a wall. Real mad. Please don't punch any more walls. Someone's gonna fix them holes for you.
The best way to define Aina's smile at that precise moment would be terrifyingly mean. While her bad temper was known and feared among the other merchants, it was unusual for her to be so acidic, especially towards Adder. Our dear boy couldn't help but notice this change, and he wasn't going to keep it to himself, of course.
You're acting real ugly, boss.
Oh, the smile on her face vanished, replaced instead by a grimace. In response to his affirmation, Aina merely shifted her gaze back to the blade and resumed her task, pretending she hadn't heard him. But if Adder was known for one thing, it was his incessant need to stick his nose in everyone's business. Good night.
You scared or something, boss?
A wrinkle formed over her nose as she focused on keeping calm. Adder quickly understood what was irking her.
Now. I ain't dumb enough just yet to go asking you to explain. Just Promise me that you're gonna let me know if it's too much for you, okay? One nod, ma'am.
Huff. She looked up, pointing at different parts of the crowd with her snout. Then she shrugged, trying to hide under the shade of their stall.
Well, of course it's crowded. It's a friggin' fair. Just what in the name of hats was the patron thinking, leaving y'all alone in the stall?
Aina only seemed to become even more conflicted as he said this.
Sorry, I didn't mean...
Oh.
Look, boss, your pa must have thought the same thing I think. That you're the strongest and the coolest, and you can do this if you wanna.
Aw.
And you ain't alone anyway. No, ma'am. Adderson, son of Gerfaza, the upper field's right here for you. All day, every day. Now, come on. How many hugs do the patroness need to feel better?
Aw. Right? Adder opened his arms wide, looking for a hug. She's gonna punch him. Instead, he found the tip of the dagger inches away from his big snout.
Well, someone don't like to hug in public. I know that now. Gotta? Yep. I swear on my one good eye that I ain't gonna forget it for the rest of my life.
No, talk me, I'm Engie.
So, please, ma'am, let me live a little longer.
Aina looked confused for a moment. She dropped the knife in a hurry as soon as she realized that she was still wielding it. Oops! Clearly flustered, she tried to sign some kind of apology, which in turn led Adder to apologize as well, which conversely made Aina attempt some sort of embrace as a compensation. So in the end, they just shook each other's arm awkwardly and called it a day.
Oh, just kiss already.
You'll grab. Adder and Aina immediately jumped away from each other, doing their best attempt to look half professional. A thunderous laugh resonated over the ruckus of the bazaar. You gonna kiss the girl? Oh,
You'll grab?
you'll grab. I was right. One of them.
It's respectable Illigrab Buntalos to you,
Illigrab.
boy. But please, don't hold back on my account. I'll just look the other way. What?
Uh-oh. And so appeared the man that was so red that it would seem that he'd stolen all the color his daughter was lacking.
Patron!
Ah, so he gets the respectful treatment and I don't. I see how it is.
Shut up, Illigrab.
What's that salacious doll cop doing to my daughter now?
They're just strengthening their ties of friendship. Ah, or is this a budding love?
Oh. The merchant shook his cane, hitting Illigrab's twiggy leg with a loud thunk. The tree man just wiggled his mustache in response.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Hold up. We weren't doing anything, patron.
That's the problem, you cumber ground! You lighter sack! You!
Oh no, patron. A coughing fit saved Adder from more old-timey insults, which he could barely comprehend. Once he'd recovered, the merchant put his bearded face next to Adder's, resting the tip of his cane on Adder's chest. He opened his toothless mouth slowly, his breath reeking more like bleach than liquor.
You haven't sold a single thing, have you?
Now, that's hardly their fault, Red.
I'm sure this Yeltsin was just frolicking with my daughter as usual!
She's old enough to frolic as she pleases.
She hasn't even come of age yet!
Of course she hasn't. There's no way for her to pass that right.
Of course there is! She just needs to open her mouth and stop being an idiot!
Oh. Rude.
The only idiot here is the one talking, patron. Ana's just mute.
Stab him. That would be... Well, no, that wouldn't be Ana's fix-all. Her fix-all is smashing things, I believe.
I wish that rub off on you! And maybe you'd learn to keep your mouth shut when adults are talking!
So rude. Holy crap. She has something to say.
But I did pass the coming of age right, sir. I got them adult horns and...
Shut up! Don't you have anything to say about this, insolent child?
She ran away.
Ana?
She walked away while you two were arguing.
She gone.
Then why didn't you say so sooner, you overgrown sapling?
Well, she looked like she needed it.
Yeah.
This is all your fault! And yours!
He stabbed at his nose with the tip of his finger.
What did I do?
That stupid child's been acting up since you first arrived!
You like the tree guy? I agree. I don't like him very much. I really like this kid. This guy. He's cool.
Don't blame the poor boy. She's always had an attitude, and you know it.
I don't care! You two better go bugger off somewhere else, or I swear to Arab that I'll hit you so hard that you'll be cropping out your teeth for a week!
Wow, he looks like a guard or something. Both Adder and Eelgrab winced at that.
Now hold up, what?
Come on, Adder. Those two clearly want some alone time. And he'll have plenty of that when I leave him tied to the pyre next time I find a mob outside the shop.
Eelgrab took Adder by the cape and lifted him off the ground as they walked away. It didn't take Eelgrab long to notice Adder's unusual reticence to speak, or reticence.
Please, don't let Red's words affect you. He's, worse today. There's a storm coming from the west, and it's making us old people nervous.
No, the patron can preach and holler all he want. That don't bother me much. I mean, I don't cry anymore at least.
Oh.
What he said to Ana, though, now that's going 2 paces past the league too far.
Nice.
So what if she can't swear the oath thing? The 3 won't get mad at her for being mute. And anyway, Ana don't gotta pass no right. It ain't like she's getting married any day soon, right?
There. Got it all out of your system, boy?
You know what? All this stuff I'm saying means radish stew if I don't say it to her face. I gotta find her and make sure she's alright.
Eelgrab didn't reply to that last affirmation. He placed Adder carefully on the ground and patted his cap to straighten it.
Well, in that case, I have to go back to keeping watch on the fair.
He is a guard.
So, this is where we say goodbye for today. Hey, I'll send someone to fetch you if I see her, okay?
Adder nodded resolutely. They waved goodbye to each other. Adder nodded. And then the buck just stood there wondering where to start looking when the bazaar was half a league gate to gate. From gate to gate. Assuming she was still in the bazaar at all.
Finally! I thought that fluffy bastard was never leaving.
Joff walked into the scene with a huge smile as the giant disappeared in the distance.
Afternoon, Mr. Bard.
Oh, lad, what a face.
Well, see, it's a long...
Ah, not a word. Thy mean speaketh clearer than thy tongue doeth.
Yeah, he's a bard.
You're hungry.
He's definitely a bard.
Nah, I ain't in the mood to...
Well, I am. And I can't play a song when my stomach's growling a gazelle. Let's get some fried leaves.
Sorry, Bard. I ain't got time for any of that. I gotta go look for Ana. She just ran away angry as all get out, and I know darn well if I don't go check up on her, no one's gonna...
Oh.
And I thought my songs were monothematic.
Fried leaves. Geoff picked the strings of his oud one by one, deep in thought, while Adder just paced around.
I know just the place to look.
Geoff expertly snuck through the crowds, moving with such ease that he seemed to be little more than a shadow. He's not a bard, he's a rogue. That's a rogue move. Adder did his best to keep up with him, though that was hardly an easy task when he was one head taller than most other deer. The place Geoff was looking for wasn't in the plaza itself, surrounded by stalls and all their merchandise, but rather on one of the many alleys that led to the bazaar. The crowd there was bustling with life as well, but not quite in the same manner. They were all rowdy deer, pushing and cheering. A Carnmay alley. Carnmay alleys were very different from the official sort. While killing was still very much frowned upon, there was no chivalry. No one set of rules. There was no way of knowing if the horns you were being gored with were hygienic. There were punches and kicks and all sorts of cheats. It was chaos. And for that and several other reasons, Ana was a huge fan of unofficial Carnmay. Sadly, as much as Adder jumped and pushed and yelled, she wasn't anywhere to be found.
Alas, your fair maiden is in another alley.
Adder cast a long glance over the improvised battlegrounds, attempting to find her one last time.
That's too bad. Ana kicked some serious ass here.
Good thing she's not allowed to fight.
Yeah, ain't no way they're gonna let a doe...
A golem, Adder.
Geoff cast a very serious look in his direction. This wasn't the first time they'd had this discussion, and it wouldn't be the last.
How many times do I gotta tell you? Ana is not a golem, okay? She's a doe. It's just she's a bit of a weirdo.
Weirdo. Right. Tell me, Adder dearest, how many albino does can you name off the top of your head that can lift your heavy butt with just one hand?
Ana! Now let's go! We gotta find her!
Why do I even bother? Look at her. Golem or not, she's just a little cabbage head hiding in the crowds of this enormous city. She's damn good at hiding.
And has fangs.
And do you know why people hide? Uh-huh.
'Cause they don't want to be found.
Geoff extended his arms toward him in a dramatic manner, remarking how correct he was.
You're not gonna find her. So why don't you go and use your thick skull for something useful? Like bringing us money so we can have dinner for once.
Geoff pointed to the ring with his horns, and Adder knew better than to insist. With a heavy sigh, Adder nodded and began walking toward the ringmaster.
Ah, wait, there's just one more thing. Your bag of coins. You wouldn't want to lose what little we have to the hands of, say, some ill-intentioned crook.
Better the evil you
Oops.
know, right?
Geoff extended his hand a bit too keenly, waiting for Adder to find the purse he usually hid within his sash. But
Whoa, Bard, you're really gonna bust the gut laughing.
Don't tell me you lost it.
oh boy,
Alrighty then.
Geoff's scrawny body trembled like a branch about to snap off.
Just go. All right. See that sweaty blockhead over there with the glistening fur and that charming smile? That's your foe.
Huh? Sap.
I'll go place
I mean,
my bet
hi.
now. Are you feeling like a winner, ladder?
Just fear? Just what? Damn, I can't remember.
Charming. Oh, hold up. You mean the guy with them sharpened horns? Oh, darn, Bard. Your confidence in this poorly put together row is much appreciated, but as much as it hurts me, and it does, I think I'd rather go to bed hungry today.
What?
What if it hits me in the face? I don't want to go from Adder the One-Eyed to Adder the No-Eyed!
Then do enlighten me, my boy, on how in the name of the Hatsa do you pretend to become a knight if you can't handle even a rack pointed at you? No wonder you can't even catch a hint, yellow piece of mangy venison.
Aw.
Sorry about that.
What are you mumbling there, Goff?
I said I'm going to walk you through this. So, oh, help me three if you mess up.
Hey, let this dog win. And a girl, you sure eat your veggies. But those sticks on your forehead, I can't fool anyone.
If he's serious, this is gonna be easier than I'd thought.
Alright, so Sandra is the person that is making this. This is not the version where I get a battle system to work either, so we're going to play pretend here together and make like you won. Yay!
Whoa, I can't believe it! Still alive and kicking! Come on, show me the money, Bard. I want to bite every single coin.
I completely forgot to place the bet.
Oh my god. Geoff covered his face with his hands, making some sort of unintelligible noise that can only be described as the very sound of anger. You've heard the sound of silence. Now, listen to the sound of anger.
Hey, Big Ed, I want to learn some tips too. I'll buy you dinner.
Gore.
Hey now, sir. You really think you're going to steal my manager away, so...
Geoff shut Adder's mouth with one hand.
My dear boy, you sure gave it all today, so why don't you go and enjoy what's left of the fair? I have a gig in the tavern later. Money, yes. Don't expect me tonight.
Oh boy. With that, Geoff hurriedly shooed a very confused Adder away. Susha. Without any friends or anything even remotely similar to hanging out with. Adder dragged his feet around the bazaar. He had missed most of the events, and after the fight, he was actually aware of just how empty his stomach was. Adder considered that his best bet was merely walking around until he got tired and then heading home to sleep the hunger off until Aina bought him some food the next day. That is, if Aina was coming back of her own volition. Then again, he'd never seen her miss a single day of work. He wandered all over the plaza, unsure of where he was headed. And somehow, he'd ended up in a place that looked all too fancy for a buck like him. Then again, maybe it wasn't as fancy as it looked. It didn't look like the does around could afford many clothes. Well, now looky here. This place look nice and rich, but I'm sorry you be looking like you might be a little poor. You do need a shirt, young lady? No. No, I don't. Oh, you poor, innocent, naive buck. Before the gears of his mind could add 1 and 1, a small flickering light coming from a small tent nearby stopped Adder's train of thought. Distracted from his previous concerns about the ladies, he kept his eyes fixed on the flame in the dark. He couldn't help but feel like it was directed at him somehow. Though we can't discard that being related to being too hungry to think, of course. Though we can't discard that being related to being too hungry to think, of course. With nowhere better to go and nothing better to do, Adder followed his intuition and headed straight for the tent. Dusk was still a ways off, but it may have as well been midnight inside the tent. Adder combed the darkness desperately, startled by the sudden change in illumination. Bandits, assassins, mongrels. His imagination conjured a million evildoers ready to make him part with his precious cape, for that was all he had on him. An orange blur shone in a corner of Adder's sight. Its flare grew with unmeasured force, blinding him for a moment. He struggled to regain his vision, fearing those foes that only lived in his mind. Bathing in the light of an orb that was filled with fire, shaded in ways that had made no sense whatsoever, awaited a feminine silhouette. A very feminine silhouette.
Took you long enough.
Of course it was her.
Yeah, it's not a living.
And all of a sudden, Adder wished he'd found a bandit instead. At least he would have known where to look then. Joseph. He tried to fix his gaze on her eyes, shining above a thin pink veil that covered most of her face, but that was in vain. The sequins that hung from her neck reflected the light all over the room, dragging Adder's attention right back to them and the scarf that covered the bare minimum. I have 1,000 words to call the woman in front of him, and none of them are good. So let's just say that what she was wearing would be inappropriate now. Let alone then.
Don't just stand there. Take a seat.
That's right, Joseph.
I don't know. I've been sitting on my tail all day, and I got places to go, and I don't usually share tents with ladies, and...
Judging by her glare, she wasn't going to take no for an answer.
What am I saying? It'd have been mighty ugly of me to reject an invitation.
Aw, she's sweet. I hope I only skipped one little bit. Adder did as... Yeah, I didn't skip anything. Adder did as asked and sat down on one of the many pillows laying around. Pretending to be crazy, escaping, begging the gods for mercy, breaking down and claiming that he wasn't in fact a horn eater, that this was just a mistake and he shouldn't be there. Adder's mind was bustling with ways of getting out of that situation. So, of course, whenever his mind was busy, his mouth was free to speak as it pleased.
Hi.
He spoke with a voice more akin to that of a fawn whose antlers were just beginning to sprout than that of a fully grown deer.
Nice place you got here. I like your cushions. These cushions over here and over there. Darn, they sure are comfy. What are they made of? They gotta be the comfiest cushions ever. Can I bounce on them, ma'am?
Oh my god.
Please don't.
Oh.
Okay, but I'm talking about your cushions, not your cushions, all right? I'm not gonna bounce on either. Just want to make that crisp clear.
A mocking chuckle stabbed Adder's heart. Feeling even more self-conscious than he thought he was capable of, he held onto his hooves and fixed his gaze on the ground, screaming inside as his face burned.
So it wasn't the contusion after all, huh? You're just like that.
You're nice.
Like what now?
Funny.
Funny? Me? Not one bit, man. I ain't got a funny bone in my body. Doc and I ain't ever seen worse jokes than Adder scenes. Hold up. Didn't that sound like a poem just now? Well, darn. A poem ain't nothing but a dull song, Mr. Bard always says so. I'd hate to bore a fine lady such as yourself, so I better get...
Bore me? Please. With hands like those, you wouldn't look out of place in a traveling circus. Or in some lord's court, if you're any good at juggling. In fact, I know a certain gazelle in dire need of entertainment. What do you say? One word from Jacif, and you will be working in a palace tonight.
Oh. Adder couldn't quite figure out if that was meant to be an insult or a compliment. But he was quick to decide that it was better to work for someone that didn't talk than for someone that talked about herself in third person.
I think I'm gonna pass for now, but I'll holler at you next time I'm fresh out of pride, ma'am.
Oh! Damn! A deep silence filled the tent. Right? Shade is... Ah, dang. I need like a little umbrella or something. Just shade. A deep silence filled the tent. Adder cursed his luck and his good manners. He wanted to run away and hide, fearing that otherwise he'd commit a big mistake. The kind of mistake that would get him called a horn eater for the rest of his life.
Well then, it was sure nice to see you again, but...
Would you like to know your fortune?
Adder turned on his heel, desperate to find out if her offer was indeed true. There was nothing that betrayed a lie in her words, nor her eyes.
Whoa! You're one of those gazelle fortune tellers? For real?
Let's just say they looked rather different back in Adder's town.
Well, slap my head and call me silly. I got you pegged all wrong, ma'am. Darn right I'd love to hear it. Oh, hold up. I lost my bag of coins. I ain't got a single dollar on me, so...
Something flew into the ground right beside Adder's foot.
My bag?
You were right, Joe.
You dropped it right after you crashed the first time. I meant to give it back, but since you were so bent on running through that wall...
Or maybe that.
You didn't steal from it, did you?
Steal what? It's just filled with rivets.
Yeah, dropped it.
Aha! That means you opened it!
So much for wanting to see you again.
Oh.
That was all. You can go now if you want.
A punch to the gut would have hurt Adder infinitely less than her words. What am I doing? He thought to himself, biting the inside of his cheek. No mere thief would have returned his bag, and sad as that was, no other person had ever gone so far for him. And so he sat down once more, looking at the finely yet scarcely dressed woman in front of him with a mix of embarrassment, naivety, and just plain fear.
I don't suppose you accept rivets as payment.
That would depend on what you're paying for.
Getting my fortune told?
Just keep them.
Jasif rested her arms over the crystal orb, leaning closer to Adder. Hints. She's dropping textbooks. That was so me back when I was in like high school, first year of college.
All right.
Getting
Can
close
you
to
look at
Adder.
the ball thing and tell me how my mom and pa are doing? Did any of my little bros get married yet?
True.
That's cute. But it's a reading glass, not a magic mirror.
Oh, shame.
Right. How about the weather? Can you give them good harvests?
Take your prayers to the temple.
Oh, darn, that won't do either. Alrighty then, how about me? What do you see in this buck's future?
That's what you wanted.
Your future? Why would you want to know anything about that? Life would be boring if you knew it waits around every corner.
Oh.
I'll read your past and justify your present.
But I already know those things.
I don't.
Her blue eyes spoke like an insinuating whisper. Her fingers walked over the cobblestone ground and headed towards Adder's own hands as her face got ever so close.
For example, we could talk about why you did what you did for me then, and figure out what I could do to return the favor now.
The sequins that hung from her sash rang as they hit the ground, reminding him once more of her less than modest clothing. But no, she was no doe.
I gotta insist, ma'am, that you definitely got the wrong buck. But even if I ever did anything nice for you in my life, a simple thanks is more than enough payment.
I guess you could use a reminder too.
The soothsayer made no attempt to conceal her disappointment, much like no one ever made an attempt to explain to her that what coming on too strong means. With apparent tedium, she grabbed the crystal orb and put it right between her face and Adder's. This time, she had no more pretensions than merely watching him.
Oh fire, tell me the secrets in the... Yada yada, stuff in Bazaktet. I don't feel like switching languages now.
Her complete lack of professionalism made Adder feel, for once, at ease. After all, what would he do if he was indeed in front of a Sephi? One of those heinous Barhan wizards from far back in time. Cry? Beg? Try to escape? Wait, those are things he'd already thought of doing. As Adder was considering the subtle differences in the fears he felt when talking to a girl and imagining being burnt to a crisp by a witch, she watched him. And she kept watching. And then she watched some more. But something seemed off. The gazelle shifted her eyes and squinted. lifted her head from behind the glass a few times, and finally settled on fixing her gaze on the fire again. But she seemed to be struggling. She pressed her mouth to one side, wiggled her nose, and knit her eyebrows closer and closer as she focused on the orb until Adder could no longer hold his laughter back.
Shush. It's easier with two.
She mumbled the last part to herself, but Adder was sure that she'd said eyes.
Oh, what's that? You ain't never done it with a one-eyed deer before?
Adder pressed his lips together like he wanted to make them disappear. Jasif merely rose an eyebrow. His accidental innuendo made him begin shaking from horns to hooves once more.
Screw this.
She pushed the orb away with an exasperated sigh. Before Adder knew what was going on, his face was in her hands, and her face right in front of his.
I need to find out if it was you after all. Stay still.
A drumbeat in his heart, a drumbeat in his ears. That was Adder's heartbeat as she stared at him so intently. There was a lump in his throat. He did his best not to tremble. His eyes, began feeling heavy, though his eye began feeling heavy, though he tried to hold her gaze. She was muttering something, words about his past, but her voice became obscured by the noise of the bells, the crackling of the fire, the sound of her own eyelashes batting against each other.
No. This can't be.
Adder opened his eyes, surprised at her sudden change of attitude. He was going to ask what was wrong, but instead, he would have screamed if he could. Oh. Two guards manifested out of thin air, one young and angry, and the other collected yet strangely alert. The young guard pointed his assegai at Adder, making it clear that he wasn't joking around.
Just who do you think you are?
Who do you think I am?
That was Jasif's voice. But as much as he tried to find her, Adder couldn't see her. In fact, he couldn't even move at all. Uh-oh. It went the other way! Oh! Yoo-hoo! It's been reversed!
What? You're not gonna trick me with that, scum!
As I said, I'm nothing but a girl on her way home.
He's looking into her past when she was supposed to be looking into his.
Exactly. Now, get off the royal pathway immediately.
Adder felt a lump in his throat as he unwillingly looked over the railings that he was leaning against.
I don't suppose you expect me to jump off the bridge.
You're right. I'll just drag you to the dungeon and end this nonsense. Your kin shouldn't even be outside after curfew.
Oh, wow. Racist.
My kin? Do you mean the girls from the Desert Rose?
The guard's face went pale all of a sudden. The older one seemed surprised in a different way. A sigh of relief was welling up inside Adder's chest, though he couldn't feel his chest at all. He was beginning to question his sanity altogether.
I assume you're familiar with that name. I'm already running late, and Miss Rochelle will be really, really worried if her favorite girl doesn't make it home before dawn. So, I thought that I could use a little shortcut.
But only nobles can.
Tell you what, if you could make a little exception this time, I'm sure I could arrange a discount next time you visit my home. Just say that Jasif sent you there.
Jasif? I mean, if you were a doe, I would consider it, but...
I don't know. I've heard a lot of things about Jasif, and I think I'd recognize someone that goes around calling herself Queen if I saw her.
I can assure you I'm...
Assure me? I'm not sure I can take a gazelle's word. See, maybe I can't recognize you because you're wearing too many clothes.
Ugh, what are you saying, you numbskull?
What? It's her job anyway if she's telling the truth. We could let her go if she pays a little toll.
Adder felt revolted. The other guard was clearly disgusted as well.
Keep it together, Sep. It's over if you take a step back.
The guards didn't react to that sentence at all. It was like they hadn't heard her, when her voice sounded loud and clear in Adder's ears. But more importantly, Sep?
I can pay in gold.
Then we'll take that too.
I don't like you. I'm going to stab you.
We? I want nothing to do with this.
More for me.
Wow, I would push you over the frickin' balcony. A smirk appeared on the guard's face, but before he could even move a muscle, a scream tore up the silence of the night.
What do you think you're doing?
Uh-oh. Everyone turned around to look at the idiot yelling all the way down on the ground. Gore. Gore him again.
Think you can just bother a lass because she looks good enough for second helpings and then dessert? Well, you can't, alright?
Chubby Adder.
That's radish stew, and you'd make your ma cry if they knew. Let her go!
Adder had, most certainly, gone crazy.
What the hell is that Sandfur saying? Is he drunk?
I don't know. I think he's just a horn eater like you.
Who are you calling a horn eater? Just hold up there!
Adder, the pudgy version of Adder that is, wasn't concerned with matters such as his complete lack of grace, agility, or strength. Moved by his sense of justice, he began climbing the column that led to the royal pathway. Of course, he never made it.
Hey! Are you still alive? Horn eater!
What was what sentence?
You should go check.
As if I'm going to leave you alone with her. Get that old ass back to the barracks, or I'm telling Elagrab what you just did.
Elagrab, yeah. Oh, this radish stew? I don't know. It was the older guard's turn to go pale. He lowered his helmet and began walking in the other direction. The younger guard, however, stopped a moment to look at her.
You... go home. And don't let me catch you up here again.
Oh. When food looks really yummy, you eat it, and then you go back for second helpings. And then you go back to eat it again for dessert. And yes, I like the young guard. The guards finally disappeared in the darkness. A moment of peace, which Jasif took to look over the railings one last time. Her wannabe savior now lay unconscious on the ground after hitting his head during the fall. And, in spite of how miserable the scene was, Adder could feel a smile forming on her face. He finally understood that, crazy or not, he was seeing what she was seeing, the way she saw it.
That was really nice of you. I'll make it up to you somehow.
Oh. Noticing how high the bridge was off the ground, she quickly pulled away from the railing.
Some other day.
Nice. Jasif turned around and began running, lest any other patrols would head her way. As she ran, Adder began feeling lightheaded. He shut his eyes tightly once more, and when he opened them, He was back in the tent, with the gazelle still staring at him. Not a moment had gone by. Adder had a million questions. Was that real? Was that a memory? Had he eaten something off? Had he forgotten any more parts of his life due to hitting his head too hard, as usual? But as he opened his mouth, he could only pronounce a single word. Sep. Watch.
Sep?
The redhead lost grasp of his face for a moment. Her ears perked up, attracting Adder's gaze, much to his chagrin, towards her horns once more. She pulled her head back, disconcert forming on her expression just little by little. It wasn't one of her conceited expressions, nor was there any mesmerizing superiority in her eyes. She looked honestly and utterly tiny for a moment. Scared.
Where did you hear that?
Where did I... Oh! Ma'am, you're okay! You're gonna think I'm crazy, but I heard you say it just now. But not now. It was a long time ago. I was under Hirup's statue. I mean, you were, but I was you and not me, because I was trying to save you, but I fell on my face, and those guards laughed at me, and, just how the hell did I forget any of this? Why can't I remember?
You're a gaze reader.
Nice. Anger hit her like a wave as the shock disappeared.
Why didn't you say so? Get away from me!
The fire in the orb began flickering erratically, casting disturbing shadows all over the tent.
Whoa, what's going on? What in the name of Atsa did I do now? Was I supposed to say something? Thank you. That the magic word?
Do you seriously expect me to believe that you...
Hold on. Sip? It was Sip, wasn't it? Oh crap, I just went and cussed a lady out in Gazelle speak, didn't I?
She looked at him with skepticism, her eyes squinted with barely concealed anger. She was clearly sizing him up.
No. You really don't have a clue of what you just did, do you?
Ma'am, if I ever got a clue in my life, it wasn't today. I'm just glad you're alright and that guard is in the dungeon or dead or something.
Her expression relaxed just a little as she considered Adder's words. Our poor boy had more than enough, trying to get some air into his lungs.
Then you're telling me that you're a natural gaze reader? Do you even understand what this means?
Do I have to say yes or no to get out of here alive?
Very good question. A small chuckle erased all the tension up from her face. Adder felt even more confused upon seeing this.
I was trying to read your gaze, but you read mine instead. It's called gaze because we invented it. So, it's true what they say about yellow deer. You must have Barhan blood.
Ooh. Adder would have normally disputed that last affirmation. Roe deer took pride in being real deer. No gazelle blood. Not at all. Nope. 100% deer with does that don't have horns. But this was clearly not the moment nor the company to say that.
In Sirnar, please.
You read my mind.
Say what? I think I'm not the funny one here, Missy.
The gazelle seemed way too amused with this development.
No. It makes so much sense. I was wondering why you spent so much time looking at my face.
Yeah, he wouldn't be a horn... Oh my gosh, Joe, really? He wouldn't be a horn eater.
Hear me out. I'm sure you've always been really good at getting people's feelings. But not smart enough to actually understand them. You're like some kind of savant hick. That's what he is.
A wrinkle formed over Adder's snout. That was quite enough.
My name is Adder, not Hick, Miss Sepp.
Don't call her that.
Now why'd you go hiding such a cute little name, I wonder?
Her face went back to being little more than a pretension of grandeur, but she held the fire close to her. She didn't look all that different from a child hugging her blanket, soothed by the rhythm of the bells she wore. Adder couldn't help but notice that her alarming clothing didn't even bother him anymore.
It's just a stupid nickname someone gave me. I hadn't heard it in years. They call me Jacif now.
Jacif. As that disgusting guard well said, that was no average name, and much less for a Barhan.
Ain't that something like Queen and Gazelle speak?
Jesus Christ.
Bazaktet. And yes, that's a valid translation. Do you have any qualms about it?
Adder opened his mouth, ready to speak his mind. I don't know where either of these are going to lead me.
I don't know what that word means, but I like Sepp better. Sepp.
Do not call me that. It's just a stupid...
Calling yourself Queen is a whole lot sillier, Sepp.
Sepp's lip trembled in anger, but Adder just shrugged. That's what she got for picking on him. The redhead tensed her whole body, and when she was about to reply, she decided instead to just look away.
Are you alright?
She turned her face sharply towards him, his. There was something different in the way she was looking at him. Oh no, did I mess up?
Adder, right?
That's me.
He took a hand to his heart and bowed his head as an instinctive greeting, accidentally clashing his horns against hers. He was surprised to find out that somehow that was a lot less gross than he thought it'd be. And he didn't know how to feel about this appreciation.
Didn't you want to know your future? Then listen closely.
She put her mouth right next to his ear and whispered,
You're coming with me tonight.
Oh. Joe, you had me worried. This is not that kind of game, bruh.
Where?
You really are one of a kind. Come to the Desert Rose when the lights are all out. My room is on the first floor, but climbing there should be easier than climbing the bridge at the very least.
No, the 3 Days to Love. I was laughing at that. That's what I was. And I don't think it's that kind of game. I don't know.
Wait, climb? Room? There you go saying weird stuff again. I'm not a thief, and I'm not a hoarding...
Oh no. Without previous warning, the fire in the orb extinguished, leaving the room in total darkness. Adder didn't have time to feel alarmed. He felt her hands on the back of his head, and next he knew her lips were over his. His mind shut up completely.
See you later.
Oh boy. He couldn't even stop to consider how he felt about that before the kiss was over. With his mind still in a daze, he got up and turned around to leave. For a few moments, he stood frozen outside the tent, merely appreciating the cool dusk breeze on his fur. I need to stop. Okay. I'm saving this. I'm quitting. Okay. Goes all the way out. Now to check to make sure. It still works. Or not works, that's not what I'm worried about. Can load it. Nice! Okay, cool. He's not with Ada. And I know spoilers, so I can't say much. But yeah, he's not with Ada. They're not a thing. He's very insistent that he is in the friend zone area. Yeah. I like Ada. She's gruff. She's yeah. Anyway, I will see you later. Talk to you later. And I will play this again tomorrow night. So yeah. Yes. Well, we'll see. Yeah. So then, peace. Deuces. I'm out of here. Outie.